The short of it is this base 13-inch M4 iPad Pro and the 256GB configuration will finally replace my 2020 4th gen a12z 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Also, I can continue to watch YouTube, write emails, browse the internet, but with just a little bit more finesse. Now, I'm not going to dive into the specs as I'm certain by this point you've already watched a dozen videos that describes the thinness, the Pencil Pro, and of course the OLED display. Some even bring up the age-old question of if it can replace your laptop, which, depending on who you are, your answer will vary. But if you somehow found this video, I want to take a slightly different approach, one that isn't about showing off all of its new specs, but make more of my impressions and should you upgrade video. Now, my 4th gen iPad Pro from 2020 during COVID is indeed a wonderful piece of technology for entertainment and basic tasks. It's been faithful and it can handle itself just fine with emails, Slack, and every media you throw at it. But it was feeling a bit dated and I patiently waited and skipped the M1 and M2 variants with its mini LED displays. So naturally, I was really excited to receive the 13-inch. Yet, once I received it, I felt confused. All of my excitement of the slimmer and lighter body dissipated as soon as I grabbed it. Sure, I can feel the difference in my hand, and it's noticeably easier to hold and to manipulate, and yes, the screen is nicer, but for some reason, the hype was real and I was expecting to feel a brand new product in my hand, but instead, I felt like I got more or less the same. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're coming from anything that's 4 years or older, the improvements are real and you can literally feel the difference. The screen is nice. While being more soft and mellow, it maintains its sharpness. And what really makes me happy is the expensive Magic Keyboard. The Magic Keyboard, while ridiculously expensive, alone almost makes the new iPad Pro worth it. The iPad team literally stole the bottom half of the MacBook and ran with it. I'm not so sure about this white as I know it'll get super dirty, but the build here is top notch, and for anyone who does treat their iPad Pros as their primary note-taking, email writing, this will be an incredibly satisfying experience. Okay, so ultimately, it's nice, but not blow your socks off nice. And yes, it'll become my new iPad Pro replacement. A lot of reviewers sprung for the 1TB model with the nano glass display, but honestly, $2,000 for 16GB of RAM and a textured screen feels like a really hard pill to swallow. And if you're like me, where you just browse the internet and watch videos, I really don't think you need to purchase the 1TB version. But some people like to get the top of the line product, and for you, I hope you enjoy it. You can argue that you are future-proofing your device, but I think it's honestly reserved for power users who are using apps that take up gobs of RAM. For the rest of us, 256GB and 8GB of RAM, for us mere mortals, I think we'll be just as happy, if not even more so, when one day we can actually afford that flex. Oh, and just a quick rant, the pencil still can't swipe from the bottom, and the borders, which help you grab the screen, are still thick and ugly, which I get it, it's functional, but just looks like it's stuck from a few generations ago. Lastly, I'm not sure if my eyes are playing tricks on me, but the 11-inch and the 13-inch when side by side definitely have slightly different hues to them. It's quite odd, but the 13-inch is more soft and mellow, almost yellow, while the 11-inch feels a few degrees more blue. Anyhow, it's something you shouldn't really notice until you spend a few days with them side by side, and it's very subtle, but something that I caught. And of course, I turned off the night displays or the true tones to compare as well, but to no avail. They do look slightly different. Let me know if you have access to both and if you see that difference as well. I saw some reviewers revisit the idea of replacing their MacBooks, but let's be honest, how many iPad Pro buyers, and in particular reviewers that you're watching on YouTube, already have a MacBook Pro and are saying this? The iPad Pro is clearly an accessory tech that can do most things normal people will do, but not all things Mac OS. With that said, almost everyone who makes videos on YouTube is somewhat of a power user and has made the value judgment that it's important to them to spend a collective of $5,000 or more on phones, laptops, and tablets combined. But I think for most individuals, owning an iPhone and a MacBook is more than one cares to spend on. I do agree that the iPad Pro can be one's primary tech if, for instance, you're someone who barely touches their MacBook or laptop and finds themselves on their iPhone for the majority of their time. But in those rare instances, you'll still be glad you had a MacBook. Now, with that said, I can totally see how the iPad Pro, the 13-inch one, can completely replace laptops for two groups of people. Older generations, let's say for instance those who are 70 or older and don't really use the full Mac OS experience, or younger kids under 10 who don't need the flexibility of a Mac OS as well. It may be expensive, but the iPad Pro can be a wonderful gift for your aging parents or grandparents, and maybe drugs for your kids. They'll probably be fine without the Pro version or an iPad in general, but I don't have kids, so maybe I'll make that decision when that time comes. The 13-inch iPad Pro is awesome. There's no denying that, and it's a wonderful way to spoil oneself. However, it's been awesome for the last 4 years. It's fascinating how Apple can make something so great just a little bit better. We've all been there where you buy the next iPhone and it's exciting, like that Amazon delivery you've been waiting for and it shows up on your door. But as soon as you open the new package, the excitement wears off and you move on with your life. The 13-inch iPad Pro is a welcomed upgrade from the first large 12.9-inch that was released during COVID. Nice enough to finally consider replacing it. But for the majority of what I do with it, I honestly wouldn't need to, just because even back in 2020, the iPad Pro was great and still is today. Sure, the weight reduction is nice, the newer screen pops just a little bit more, but these incremental changes, which I know cost hundreds of millions of dollars to develop, are just that, incremental. Thanks for watching, and if you made it this far, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.